Malcolm X. Denzel Washington's portrayal of Malcolm X stands as one of cinema's greatest transformations, a performance so complete it transcends imitation and becomes spiritual channeling. Washington doesn't play one Malcolm X. He embodies four distinct men across a single lifetime. There's Detroit Red, the zoot-suited hustler with conked hair who danced the Lindy Hop in Boston nightclubs, speaking in smooth what-you-know-daddy jive. Then comes the raw, searching prisoner discovering Islam behind bars. Next emerges the fiery Nation of Islam minister, wielding words like weapons with measured, literate precision. Finally, we meet El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, the enlightened, world-weary revolutionary who saw beyond the narrow dogma of his past. Washington's preparation began a decade before filming when he played Malcolm in the off-Broadway production, When the Chickens Came Home to Roost. That early experience gave him a foundation and sparked an invigorating feeling of being, as he puts it, so free to be able to say anything. For the film, he became a student of Malcolm in the most literal sense. He abstained from pork and alcohol, learned to speak Arabic, studied the Quran, and attended Fruit of Islam courses. He mastered the Lindy Hop, a dance Malcolm himself was known for in his youth. His immersion was so complete that he knew precisely which pair of glasses Malcolm would have worn on any given day during any period of his life. What makes the performance remarkable is its naturalism. Washington never seems to be straining for an effect, yet he's always convincing. He captures Malcolm's evolution in careful stages rather than abrupt shifts, showing how a man can shed one identity and grow into another through sheer force of will. During Malcolm's hustling days, he distinguished himself from two other prominent street figures, St. Louis Red and Chicago Red, the latter being the man who would eventually become comedian Red Fox. The famous conch scene, where Malcolm plunges his head into a toilet to rinse out burning chemicals, actually happened in a Michigan winter when the sink pipes were frozen, not during his arrest as the film suggests. Mookie. Spike Lee cast himself as Mookie, the ambivalent center of the film's storm, a passive pizza delivery boy for Sal's famous pizzeria, who serves as the audience's guide through the complex social ecosystem of Bed-Stuy on the hottest day of the year. Mookie occupies a liminal space between warring factions. He works for the Italian-American Sal, maintains friendship with his son Vito, but lives and moves within the black community. Throughout the film, Lee portrays him as a slacker, a frequently absent father to his son, and a largely apolitical figure more concerned with getting paid than the brewing racial and social conflicts surrounding him. He tries to mediate or simply avoid tensions, presenting himself as the nice, young, black character a white audience could most easily identify with and feel comfortable around. Lee's strategic decision to cast himself in this pivotal role creates a masterful subversion of audience expectations. Mookie is intentionally the most relatable character. He's not the troublemaker like Buggin' Out, nor the intimidating presence of Radio Raheem. By having this seemingly non-confrontational, easygoing character be the one to initiate the riot, Lee forces viewers who have aligned themselves with Mookie to directly confront the motivation behind his ultimate act of violence, preventing them from easily dismissing it as the action of a radical other. This authorial choice makes the film's climax all the more powerful and morally complex. The most debated moment is Mookie's response to Radio Raheem's murder. As the crowd stands stunned and enraged, and Sal offers a dismissive, self-pitying reaction, Mookie silently walks to a trash can, lifts it, and hurls it through the pizzeria's front window, a singular act that sparks the ensuing riot. The interpretation of this action has fueled intense critical debate for decades. One reading, which Lee himself has most often endorsed, is that Mookie acted from pure, unadulterated rage and grief, an emotional, not calculated, response to witnessing one of his best friends murdered in cold blood. A second interpretation sees the act as strategic redirection. Seeing the mob's fury about to turn on Sal and his sons, Mookie channeled anger toward property instead of people, effectively saving their lives. A third view sees it as Mookie's political awakening. After a day spent in passivity, he finally sheds ambivalence, chooses a side, and embraces the hate that Raheem's monologue warned of as a necessary tool to fight an unjust system. Lee has famously pointed out that only white viewers have ever asked him if Mookie did the right thing. Vaughn, Dap, Dunlap. Laurence Fishburne, then credited as Larry, brings fiery intensity to Vaughn, Dap, Dunlap, the socially conscious senior leading protests at the fictional Mission College during a chaotic homecoming weekend. Dap is the campus revolutionary, the political firebrand demanding that the historically black college divest its financial holdings from apartheid-era South Africa. He's the film's moral and political anchor, constantly challenging the apathy of his fellow students and the hypocrisy of an administration whose motto is, uplift the race, yet depends on donations from corporations supporting apartheid. Fishburne portrays Dap as a culturally inclined militant who encourages his friends, the fellas, to fight for their beliefs, but his revolutionary zeal is complex and often misunderstood. The campus is starkly divided between the wannabes, light-skinned, affluent members of the Gamma Phi Gamma fraternity accused of aspiring to white standards, and the jigaboos, darker-skinned, politically conscious students with natural hair who see themselves as keepers of authentic black identity. Dap finds himself in direct conflict with Julian Dean Big Brother Almighty Eves, the arrogant Gamma leader who dismisses Dap's activism as African mumbo-jumbo. Many peers view Dap as an out-of-touch revolutionary whose actions might jeopardize their safe path to good jobs and financial security. Dap's journey is one of frustration and urgent realization. He's caught between political principles and personal loyalties, particularly his concern for his younger cousin, Half Pint, who endures brutal hazing rituals to pledge Julian's fraternity. When Julian forces his own girlfriend, Jane, to have sex with Half Pint as the final initiation rite, a horrified Dap confronts his cousin and the entire campus. This moral crisis serves as catalyst. The film ends with Dap breaking the fourth wall, looking directly into the camera as the entire student body assembles behind him, repeatedly, desperately yelling, "Wake up!" This final plea is the ultimate message, a call for students to awaken from the days of internal conflicts and recognize their shared identity and collective responsibility to fight larger systems of oppression. Strike. Mekhi Phifer's portrayal of Ronald Strike Dunham in his film debut is a masterful depiction of streetwise vulnerability, a performance that captures a young man trapped between survival and innocence. Strike is a 19-year-old clocker, a street-level drug dealer working around the clock selling vials of crack cocaine from the benches of a Brooklyn housing project. He works for the local drug lord and surrogate father figure, Rodney Little, a sociopathic machine of survival who maintains a benevolent, paternal grip on his clockers while demanding Faustian favors. The pressure of this life is literally eating Strike alive, manifesting as a painful ulcer that he soothes by constantly drinking a chocolate milk-like beverage, a humanizing detail that subverts gangster stereotypes and suggests lingering innocence. Phifer, who had never taken an acting lesson, was discovered at an open casting call and brought raw authenticity to the character. He drew heavily on his own experiences growing up in Harlem, including being harassed by police himself, which gave him an authentic "I hate cops" attitude in his scenes with Harvey Keitel's Detective Rocco Klein. Strike is a character of deep contradictions. On the surface, he's a hustler playing the part of a hardened gangster to survive on the streets. Yet beneath this mask lies a wounded soul. His secret passion for model trains reveals a desire for a world outside the projects, a world of order and escape. Phifer's performance is largely external and aggressive, a menacing front to fit in, but it's layered with internal conflict of a young man who doesn't have the stomach for killing. The narrative spirals when Rodney orders Strike to kill another dealer, Daryl Adams, who's been stealing from him. When Adams turns up dead, Strike's responsible older brother, Victor, confesses to the crime, though Detective Klein suspects Strike is the real killer. Strike becomes trapped in a web of conflicting loyalties and pressures. His relationship with Tyrone, a young neighborhood boy who idolizes him and begins imitating his hustler moves, creates a devastating cycle of mentorship into the drug game. When Rodney puts a hit on Strike, it's the impressionable Tyrone who takes Strike's gun and kills the assassin, becoming another casualty of the streets and illustrating how the drug trade exists due to lack of opportunities for urban youth.
What the fuck is wrong with you, huh? You bugging?
Radio Raheem. Radio Raheem is less a character in the traditional sense, and more a walking symbol of black pride, identity, and simmering frustration in the sweltering heart of Bedford-Stuyvesant. Bill Nunn portrays him as a towering, menacing figure who commands mythic respect on the block. Yet for most of the film, he barely speaks. His voice is channeled through the massive boombox perpetually perched on his shoulder, blasting Public Enemy's revolutionary anthem, "Fight the Power." The boombox isn't an accessory, it's an extension of his being, a constant, unapologetic broadcast of his presence and politics. When Sal, the pizzeria owner, finally snaps and smashes the radio with a baseball bat, the act is more than property damage. It's a symbolic murder. Sal kills Raheem's music, his voice, his very essence, an act of cultural violence that serves as the direct catalyst for the physical confrontation. He speaks directly to the camera, using his four-finger brass knuckles to illustrate the eternal struggle between two opposing forces. This speech, a direct homage to Robert Mitchum's chilling monologue in the 1955 film The Night of the Hunter, establishes the central moral dichotomy of the entire story. It reveals surprising philosophical depth to a character who otherwise communicates through sheer presence and sonic force, complicating his menacing exterior with an interior belief in love's ultimate triumph. The character's journey culminates in the film's devastating climax, his death by police chokehold. This scene was directly inspired by the real-life 1983 killing of graffiti artist Michael Stewart by NYPD Transit Police. In a tragic case of life imitating art, the scene would eerily foreshadow the 2014 death of Eric Garner, who was also killed in a police chokehold. Raheem's murder transforms him from a neighborhood fixture into a martyr, the spark that ignites the powder keg of the community's pent-up rage. Lee had originally considered Bill Nunn for the role of the loquacious DJ Mr. Senor Love Daddy, but recasting him as the silent, imposing Raheem proved genius, as Nunn's physically powerful yet benevolently glowering presence gave the character his unforgettable power. Jake Shuttlesworth. Denzel Washington strips away his trademark charisma to inhabit Jake Shuttlesworth, a man haunted by guilt and broken by his own rage. Jake is serving a prison sentence at Attica for the manslaughter of his wife, the mother of his son Jesus. the nation's #1 high school basketball prospect. He's granted a 1-week parole by the state's governor with a single, morally compromised objective: convince Jesus to sign a letter of intent to play for Big State, the governor's alma mater. Success means a reduced sentence. Failure means returning to prison. This premise establishes Jake not as a loving father seeking reconciliation, but as another player in the transactional game being played for his son's future, operating with selfish motivations in a story about the corrosive nature of American capitalism refracted through high-stakes sports recruiting. Washington portrays Jake as a man of contradictions. Proud yet pained, desperate yet patient. Flashbacks reveal the grueling, sometimes abusive training he put young Jesus through, pushing him relentlessly on the basketball court, out of a desire to make up for his own failed NBA dreams. The tragic argument where he accidentally killed his wife after she intervened defines him as a man whose pent-up rage destroyed everything he loved. Washington's performance is raw and deeply human, showing a father grappling with terrible consequences, caught between hope for freedom and need for his son's forgiveness. He attempts to reconnect not with a frontal assault, but with silence, tact, and patience, understanding the deep well of resentment he must overcome. One of the film's most poignant moments is a small, quiet scene where Jake, alone in his flophouse apartment after leaving prison, repeatedly opens and closes the door, laughing with simple joy of being able to perform such a basic act of freedom. For the role, Washington let his normally close-cropped hair grow long and drew on his experiences as a father and former college basketball player at Fordham University under coach P.J. Carlesimo. The film's climax is an intensely personal one-on-one showdown between father and son. If Jake wins, Jesus must sign with Big State. If Jesus wins, he's free to make his own decision. Washington secretly spent hours every night practicing his left-handed dribbling, telling Ray Allen for weeks that he was weak with his left hand. When cameras rolled, Washington's first move was going left, catching Allen completely off guard and scoring the first few baskets, while his competitive New York spirit took over. Pierre Delacroix. Damon Wayans delivers one of cinema's most daring and alienating performances as Pierre Delacroix, a Harvard-educated, upwardly mobile black television executive at the fictional CNS network who has so thoroughly assimilated into the white corporate world that he stripped himself of his own blackness. Delacroix, whose real name is the far less elegant Peerless Dothan, speaks in a bizarre, unplaceable, highly affected accent, a French by way of Sidney Poitier impression that immediately signals his performative elitism. He refers to other black people as Negroes and uses this manufactured identity as a defense mechanism to navigate a white society he feels requires him to shed his authentic self to succeed. Wayans, a celebrated comedian known for broad sketch characters, plays Delacroix as a buttoned-up, uptight straight man, a choice crucial to the film's thematic goals even though it actively pushes the audience away. Delacroix is constantly tormented by his boorish white boss, Thomas Dunwitty, who claims to be blacker than him, and rejects his scripts for portraying black people in positive, intelligent scenarios, dismissing them as Cosby clones. In a desperate, career-suicide mission to get fired and escape his contract, Delacroix, with reluctant help from his assistant Sloane Hopkins, conceives the most offensive show imaginable. Mantan, the new Millennium Minstrel Show. It's a full-throated revival of 19th-century minstrelsy, featuring black actors in blackface performing in a watermelon patch and embodying grotesquely racist stereotypes like the lazy, shuffling, sleep and eat. Delacroix's plan backfires spectacularly. Not only does Dunwitty love the show, but it becomes a runaway cultural phenomenon, embraced by both black and white audiences who either miss or choose to ignore the satirical intent. The characters' contradictions are vast and often confounding. The film is never entirely sure if he's a victim of the system or a willing perpetuator of it. As the show's success grows, Delacroix's initial horror gives way to an embrace of the fame and power he's long craved. He becomes a defender of the show, intoxicated by newfound prestige, even as it corrodes his soul. His office becomes a museum of racist memorabilia, jolly nigger banks and other black collectibles that begin to haunt him, coming to life and staring him down in moments of crisis. Delacroix's tragic, Faustian bargain remains a powerful cautionary tale about moral compromises demanded by a media landscape still haunted by ghosts of its racist past. Detective Keith Frazier. Denzel Washington brings sharp-witted charisma and subtle cunning to Detective Keith Frazier, the NYPD's ambitious hostage negotiator at the center of a slick Wall Street bank heist that evolves into something far more complex than a simple robbery. Washington chose to play the hero cop over the master thief when offered both roles, citing concerns about being masked for most of the film. He found inspiration for the dialogue-heavy role in his recent Broadway performance as Brutus in Julius Caesar, envisioning the character as Brutus Goes to Brooklyn. Frazier is trying to redeem himself after a scandal involving missing money, has tarnished his reputation and stalled his advancement to detective first grade, making this high-profile hostage situation both an opportunity and a potential disaster. Washington portrays Frazier as a man of compelling depth, intelligent and possessing high emotional intelligence that allows him to manage volatile situations with a blend of looseness, playfulness, and authority. His performance is a masterclass in subtlety. He treats negotiations like music, using light feints and micropauses to disarm opponents, while projecting unshakable confidence even in moments of doubt. Frazier can deliver lines of both severity and levity with equal power, masking his cunning with humor and charm. Yet Washington also reveals vulnerability. Frazier is a black cop operating within the famously controversial NYPD, a position that is inherently questionable. He believes he can improve the system from inside out, but he's constantly navigating the agendas of his superiors and the powerful fixer Madeleine White, who's hired by the bank's founder to protect a dark secret involving Nazi collaboration during World War II. The film suggests Frazier and the criminal mastermind Dalton Russell are more similar than they first appear. Two independently thinking men who've both infiltrated a system in which they don't truly belong. Their dynamic forms the core tension, a gripping cat-and-mouse game played primarily over the phone. To capture authenticity, their telephone conversations were shot simultaneously, with cameras filming Washington and Clive Owen on different sets at the same time, allowing real-time reactions. Frazier quickly realizes he's not dealing with an ordinary bank robber. Russell is always one step ahead, anticipating every police move. In a moment of brilliant deduction, Frazier deliberately provokes Russell during a face-to-face inspection, concluding from his reaction that Russell isn't a killer. This intellectual duel showcases Frazier as a complex hero who proves true intelligence lies in navigating a corrupt world without losing one's moral compass. If you like this analysis, you'll love where I go next. Click the video on your screen and find out.